Jack, Back Onside, episode 3. We're here up at Ross County, our partner at Back Onside. Did you watch the first couple?
Yeah, I've seen, I was speaking to Libby, obviously I know Joe down at Hibs, so I've kind of tuned in and listened to how he kind of put himself across on camera. But yeah, I think what you guys are doing is brilliant for raising awareness, and like we were speaking before, it's not too formal of a chat between, like it's just an open and honest kind of free flowing. There's no sort of agenda behind any of it, and it's just good to kind of get the issues out or speak about what we're going to speak about without having too much of a formal interview about it.
Yeah, of course, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's a chat. It's very much, the changing room chat. We're coming into changing rooms. Back Onside, we're doing a lot of work, obviously, behind the scenes within the industry, and there's a demand and there's an opportunity to come in and speak to the guys at clubs, and like you said, just have a chat. It's not a formal interview. It's a topic of discussion, mental health, that especially within the industry, there's a bit of a stigma around it. Yourself, if you've been in changing rooms, you need to be at it every day. There can't be any weakness. When you're going on the pitch on a Saturday, everything's geared towards getting 3 points. There can't be anything getting in the way of that. So I think it's just trying to strip that back and see that all the guys, and obviously the women in the women's game, they are human beings at the end of the day, and everyone's got stuff going on. There's been many a time when I've went into games and I've had stuff going on away from football, and this is why Back Onside have been so amazing in what they do, because you can speak to the guys behind the scenes, and there's no pressure if there's anything, and you feel better after it. So it's good to come up here, chat to yourself. As I was talking to you a wee bit off camera about how it can be difficult living away from home, and also you said that you'd moved up here, so just tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said before, first and foremost, the environment that we're in football, especially within the men's game, is quite a hardened environment. Like you say, you're gearing up to Saturday every week, and you're driven, you're focused, and everything you do is on and off the pitch. So even when you go home, like you're still probably thinking about how you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're recovering, and it's relentless at the end of the day until you kind of reach that summer period where you get kind of 4 weeks to just go another one down. But yeah, like you say, there's loads of factors that play into what could affect someone's mental health. Like you say, moving away from home, we've got quite a few young lads on loan up here that maybe have moved away for the first time or second time by themselves, and you don't have that support network you'd ordinarily have if you was living kind of on top of your parents or grandparents, brothers, sisters, whatever it might be. So it's kind of learning to adapt to kind of coping with things yourself and within your own. I've got a wife and 2 kids at home, and we're kind of we've moved around quite a bit throughout my career, so we've kind of learned to just try and use our unit as our little support net, because at times that's all we've had, and it does get tough. We're in the Highlands of Scotland, and it's quite a remote area where we're living. At the same time, you get good things that come with that. It's quiet, it's beautiful, it's a lovely part of the world up here, but just having that kind of distance between people you can lean on, like face to face. Obviously you can speak to people on the phone and FaceTime and stuff, but just going to maybe sit with your dad or your mum, whatever it might be, just have a cup of tea or coffee and just kind of speak about how things really are. I don't think you can get the same kind of interaction over the phone as you do seeing face to face.
Of course, kind of normal things that you would, you jump into your mum and dad's and get a cup of tea or whatever. Like you've not got the availability to do that, to go around and see them.
I think sometimes it just comes out naturally. It's not like you're going around to air all your problems to whoever, but you might just be having a cup of tea and you might say, "Oh, you get on with I've had a tough week at work," or whatever it might be, and and that could just then just give you the courage, or like kind of, it might just lead the conversation in a way that could maybe lift a few things off your shoulders by the end of it.
Whereas when you're away, you know, it's you, your wife, your kids, it's the 40s, and you can be quite isolated at times, and it can be difficult. How have you found that, like, throughout your career, like, kind of navigating, kind of moving about, like, from club to club?
Yeah, it's been difficult at times. We've always lived kind of a 4-hour car journey, or like up here now it's more of a flight back home.
Yeah, of course.
Can't really jump in the car and go back home, but like I say, there's always benefits that come with moving as a unit, but likewise when the kids were little, and they say it takes a village to raise a kid, or whatever the phrase is. I don't know what the phrase is.
I don't have kids, so I can tell you.
But like, my wife's had to kind of do it all herself throughout the process, and just like, even if we wanted to go out for dinner one night, like after a game, if we like had a good game or whatever, we've never really had someone who could just ring and say, "Oh, do you mind looking after the kids for a couple of hours?" So we've always we've always kind of had to just listen. We love our kids, like, and they're absolutely amazing human beings, but you need that time for yourself sometimes, and I think that's one thing that we've kind of struggled with, like as a couple and as a family, is kind of getting that time for ourselves, just to.
Ross County need to hire a babysitter just to take.
So I think there's a place in the market for kind of
a scope for that,
like
actually,
creche, or
again set piece coaches and all that in these days, isn't they? That are teaching you how to throw a ball and take a corner. So why not get a babysitter?
I think it's a great idea.
No, I mean, I've seen it firsthand with guys. You know, I've moved a bit in my career. I was there in England for 4 years. I was over in Ireland for a stint on loan, and I've seen it firsthand with guys who are uprooting their families. You know, they might be leaving their family home, renting it out, moving all the furniture out into storage, moving somewhere 5-6 hours away, moving in somewhere, renting it, you know, trying to create a homely environment, and then they're trying to sort the kids out, they're trying to make sure that, you know, their missus is alright, and if there's an away game on the Saturday, she's not just sitting there with 3 kids, and do you know what I mean? So it must be difficult, be difficult.
And I think that's, like we've always said, it's the kind of the unseen side of the game. Like obviously you see, you might flick Sky Sports News on a deadline day or whatever, and you see this player go to this place, whatever. But it's kind of, when you strip that back, like my daughter, she was just turned 9, I think she had like 5 different schools, or 4 or 5 different schools, and she's only in like year 4. And so she's had a different school for every kind of year.
And so that for a girl growing up, how hard that must be for her, just trying to make friends.
And then that kind of comes back to, like myself, it's like, well, is that the right thing to do for her? Like, how is that affecting? Obviously I need to move away for football, to play football, but do we bring them up, or do we kind of keep them settled like where they are? But because that was kind of the situation we was in, like as a family this year, was when I first signed here. I come and done the first season by myself. My wife and kids were living back at home, like where we would kind of class as home. So she had sisters, cousins.
And she family around her.
So that was kind of a good year for them to have that back. But on the flip side, we had to be separate for that to happen. So it's kind of like that balancing act. But yeah, like I say, that would then play on our minds, and then, are we doing the right thing for the kids? Would they get more from being settled at home, or do we need to be together as a family? And there's so many questions that come into it, and you just kind of go around in circles most of the time. There's no right answer.
Like you're saying there, it's stuff that, you know, people see it on Sky Sports News and they think, oh wow, that must be amazing. But, you know, for the majority, you know, the guys that will have to go and get a job when they finish playing, which is the majority of guys, it can be hard. Like, I had an experience myself when, as I said, I went over to Ireland, to Dundalk for 3 months, and, you know, I flew over there and they gave me a two-bed house. You know, the accommodation was great, the facilities were great, you know, and everybody that I was speaking to back home was saying, oh, that's amazing, that's amazing. But I moved over there myself, you know, in the first couple of days you're in training, you're meeting the new boys, and you maybe get a game or whatever, but then it's not until you come back and you're sitting in the house, maybe the 5th or 6th night, and you're sitting there yourself, and there's nobody around about you. And I was quite lucky that one of the guys who was the captain at the time, he only stayed 3 or 4 houses away, so I spent most of the time chatting his door, like saying, can I come in and sit with you and your missus in the door, do you know what I mean? Or going and playing golf all the time. You're trying to take your mind off things, but it can be very easy to sit there and, you know, get into some sort of rut mentally. It can be very easy done because you've not got people around about you. So it's a side of the game that people don't really see. You know, obviously we're kind of openly talking about mental health, and we're trying to, you know, break down a barrier a wee bit just to make it acceptable that you can speak about this, because at the end of the day, like I said there, we're all going to have to get a job at some point, you know, so we're all human beings at the end of the day. And you talking there about moving your missus and the kids and stuff like that, like the pressures then of dealing with your daughter with uprooting her schools and then having to go and produce on the pitch to make sure you get another contract, and you know, we've not even spoken about an injury. What happens if you get an injury and you're in the house with the missus and the kids, and you know what it's like when you can't train? Like, it's a nightmare. You know, you're maybe in doing double sessions, you're not seeing the boys, you're basically locked away with the physio. You know, it's hard. It's difficult.
I've been there as well.
You've been there, right?
Yeah. So I think it was just after, when was it? So just after my daughter was born, she was born in March. In the November of that year, I tore like my cruciate and one ligaments in my knee, and I was out for a year. But like you say, you kind of away from the boys in the physio room. You've not got that game or anything to look forward to at the end of the week. It's just a cycle of like going and doing the rehab, and with an injury like that, the rehab's so slow. Like, you can only do so much for the first 6 weeks, and after that you can do a little bit more. And like you say, without that kind of focus at the end of the week, which I think will then relate to when we finish playing football and need to get a job. That's going to be taken away. And I know like the podcast you did down at Hibs, the topic was kind of life after football, and how you would replicate or replace that kind of match day feeling, and where everything throughout the week building up to that one day, when that's taken away, it's like what happens then? What do you do?
Where do you place it? I know.
And I think my wife at home, she's part of like an online group of like wives and girlfriends of footballers, and they post like facts and stuff and say like the divorce rate, once lads finish playing, because they don't know how to deal with the transition, it then creates friction in the relationship. And again, that's like, I think from the outside looking in, the perception is, well, by the time I finish playing football, hopefully a 15-year career, whatever it might be, he's had a 15-year career, it'll be alright, like to just do whatever when you retire.
It doesn't work like that.
It's it's very far from the truth.
It's difficult. I mean, you know, we were talking a wee bit off camera. I was full time for 13 years, and you know, I signed part time with Dumbarton at the start of last season, and for me personally, I found that really difficult. I reached out to quite a few players that I knew who had done a similar thing, and I said to them, you know, what are you actually doing? Like, how did you get your head around it? Because in my mind, I was still wanting to train like I was full time. Like, I was still wanting to go and train on a Monday and a Friday. But then you do that for 6-7 weeks. You know, you're training on your own. You're going to train on a Thursday night, and you're playing your game on a Saturday, which is fine. But you go from having that full time environment every day, where you're bouncing in the morning, you're seeing the boys, you're training. You know, you're finishing 12:30, bite to eat, maybe in the gym. Once that goes, it's trying to wrap your head round, you know what I mean? And I think this is why it's really important to have these conversations, because I've said that a few times, we're human beings at the end of the day, so, you know, we need to then identify ourselves, you know, Jack the person, the footballer, you know what I mean, and realise that there's a big world out there, and what do we go into after that? So it's difficult, but it's been really important to have these conversations. I think that Is that something that you've thought about? Like,
yeah, I think if you ask my missus that, she'd say like since that injury, probably when was it? Maybe 8-9 years ago. Like ever since that day, I've just been racking my brain every day,
just to see
weekly basis what I'm going to do when I finish playing. I've recently started doing like financial advisor bit on the side of football as well, to try and kind of help get in the mindset of when I'm playing football, like that could be a route that I'll go down. But yeah, I think that's probably, especially like I turned 30 in the summer. I think once you get that age,
I was 30 in October there, so I've hit that age.
Yeah, so lads still playing football, once you reach that age, you're probably thinking like, well, the average retirement age, 35, 36 maybe, if you're lucky. You've not got that long left. So you need to start planning and prepping for it. But then on the flip side of that again, if you're seen from the outside to be doing stuff away from football, I think there's a big stigma in that as well, where he should be focusing on his football, this and the other. Like I've had to, like for us this season's been really tough, and obviously that's no like.
There's no secret.
There's no secret. It's been really tough, so I've kind of had to, like that stuff that I've been doing away from football, I've kind of had to like just park it, because I didn't want like that. I don't want people thinking, oh, he's focused on something else, because like, that isn't the case. Like we're professionals at the end of the day. It's
kind of looked upon then as if you don't care, which is couldn't be any further for the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's just trying to make people understand that especially with being full time, you do have time in the afternoons or at night time. Realistically, you can't be out heading a ball on the park 500 times a day. Like it's not going to make you any better. It's only going to make you worse. So you have got so much time to try and look to do these other things. But I totally understand what you're saying, that Ross County comes first. First and foremost, you've 5 big games coming up. Everyone's geared towards doing their best for Ross County to try and get up the table. So. But no, it's an interesting topic. I know that the guys spoke about it in the first episode that we did at HIBS. Obviously 𝗖𝗵. I played with 𝗖𝗵 a long time ago. I say played with him. I was a young player at the time when he was an experienced player at 𝗖𝗵𝘁, playing in the team, and he spoke openly as well about making that transition from the kind of footballing world into the kind of real world, and it's difficult, and it's something that can take its toll mentally on guys, and it's making sure that guys know that Back Onside is here for them to go and speak to them, to deal, because it can be very hard to digest, and it can be very easy for guys to go down another path, and no deal with it the right way. So I think that's why it's so important that we're getting the opportunity, obviously with the partnership with Ross County, to come and talk to first team players and make it open there for people watching that this is the real world. Everybody looks at it and goes, oh, football. Like, I mean, I've played football since I was 7 years old, straight in, at Dun United, and although you're a young kid, it's serious, because every year people are getting released, and you need to make sure that you're getting kept, and it's the same right up to 30-year-olds. So and then obviously once it starts becoming about finances and you need to pay mortgages and look after your wife and kids, it can be very hard and take its toll. So I think that's why it's so important that we come out and we have these conversations. Just on another subject that I wanted to touch on was, you'd spoke about moving, from club to club and stuff like that. I've had experiences in the past where it's not always a good experience. When we talk about, you see it on Sky Sports and you say, oh, this guy's moving there. Typically that's, well, as far as I've only moved once off the back of, it's been my decision. The majority of them it's been, I've maybe, me and the manager, maybe I don't fit the system, or it's not worked, or my contract's came to an end and I've not been offered a new deal or whatever. So that's something that we've not really touched on in the first couple of episodes, where, you know, it can take its toll on guys, because if your contract coming to an end and, you know, then you're out there and you're looking and you're saying, I hope this phone goes, like, what am I going to do here if this phone doesn't go? So it's difficult, but just, have you had any
yeah, I mean, I signed for Peterborough, like, that was when I'd done my knee. After that, I moved up to Sunderland for a 2-year contract, played the first year but got loaned out the second year, and I went across to Salford for the second season of my contract, and I think I played 2 games and got injured like in the second or third game. That put me out for about, I think it was, what was it? I don't know, about 12 weeks or something. Come back from that, played like a reserve game, like a friendly game. Got injured again, like my other leg. Like, I'd done pretty much both my ankles. I was out for another 12 weeks.
It always happens when you get injured and then you come back and then
something else happens. So I think I got to like, I think it was like January time, February, and I'd played 2 games, and I would, like, my contract at Sunderland that year was finishing. I was like, well, if I don't get back fit and don't get back in the team, I've done like a whole year where I've not played any football.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen then? Like, where do I go? Where am I going to go after that?
Yeah.
I got back in the team, managed to finish with like 13, 14 games, or whatever it was that year, and managed to get a move down to Bristol after that. But
the pressures that come on every game that you're playing then, though, is through the roof. You've
got the thought, I don't want to get injured again, because if it's a serious one, and the season's narrowing, like closing down to, you've got 5 weeks of the season left, but you know you're out of contract in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, if you like tear something or whatever, like, I've had a friend like who happened to them quite recently. Like, he was out of contract in the summer, but like tore his cruciate like 2 or 3 months before the end of the season, and like I've seen the effects that it has on boys as well. It's not, like I say, it's the pressure, it's the stress of all these different variables that could happen, and you then got to still go out there and give everything for the club, and give everything for yourself, really, to try and make sure you can get another contract somewhere else.
To try and get that contract, whether it's at that club or whether it's somewhere else.
Yeah, and like you say, you've got bills to worry about, you've like your own personal career to worry about, and like you can get yourself in the vicious cycle just sitting thinking about it, and you don't know where to find the answers, because you can't get every club in a room and say, right, do you fancy me next season?
No, of course, that's the thing, it's very hard. You're sitting kind of waiting for the phone to go, and you know, we've all done it where your contract's up at the end of May, at the end of June, and you're sitting there and you're going, I've got a month or 6 weeks left where I'm getting paid, you know, and I need to pay this bill, I need to pay that bill, you know, and then if you get an offer for another contract elsewhere and it's not as much as what you've been on, and you're going, like, what am I going to do here? I need to cancel Netflix and Spotify and all that.
Take the
TV ads. The ads one.
Cheap one. No, I think, like, for me personally, if I'm speaking openly, like, that transition is a big stress, and the financial pressures that will bring as well is a big stress for me. When we speak about it at home, it is something that we do worry about, and like you say, you can't come into the change room the next day and then like speak to one of the lads about it, because for so long it's not been that environment. But I think, like you say, with the work that the chaps like Back Onside are doing to try and just take the stigma out of just talking about these things, like it might not seem that worrying about paying a bill when you're finished playing football in for 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be, is like a big problem at the minute, but it can soon like snowball into like other things, and then you're stuck in your own head then. So I think like obviously raising awareness and kind of informalising that like everything is.
I think it's huge, because like you said there, you know, you can't really say to the guy next to you in the changing room, I'm struggling here. Like I've got this going on, you know, I need help with this, I need help with that, and it's trying to kind of break down that barrier a wee bit. And I think that it will, you know, it will take time within the football industry. I think it will take time, but I think it's growing a wee bit in that direction. Obviously I've seen firsthand playing with Dumbarton, the work that Back Onside do with Dumbarton. Like, you know, Libby's at a lot of our games and she's always there if any of the guys need to speak to her, even if it's a 5-10 minute conversation. Then typically a lot of the guys will feel better after that, coming away from that. Because like you said there, it's very easy to, you know, sit in your own head, and then before you know it, you've got yourself in this scenario in your head, and you've not actually moved. You're still sat in the same place, but you're thinking, oh my god, what am I going to do about this, what am I going to do with that? So it's hard, and this is things that as footballers we don't openly speak about. Like we're saying, you know, you come in, you have a laugh and a joke in the changing room, you have a bit of banter. Every single guy in that changing room, I don't care who you are, every single guy in that changing room has got something. You know, Merzo spoke about it in the first episode where he made a really good point when he says he sees mental health as being between, you know, a scale of 0 to 100. Everyone's got something going on. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody's jumping out of bed first thing in the morning, you know, happy as Larry. If they are, I'd love to know how they're doing that or what it is they're on for that. But you know, everybody's got something that they're dealing with, whether it's families, you know, the pressures within the football industry. And the thing about it is, obviously we're speaking quite a lot to do with the football industry, but even just in like normal life, you know, the charity does a lot of work for people who aren't involved in football. Do you know what I mean? So it's just everyone's going through the pressures. Your pressures are totally different from mine. You know, everyone's got different things going on. So it's just making sure that people know exactly what the charity are doing, and they're open there, that guys can come or women can come and they can say, listen, can I have a chat? And you know that it's, you know, 100% confidential, and you'll feel better after it. Basically, we've got a bit of a tradition that we've started Back Onside, where we ask, you know, I think the last episode at the Orium, we had a few questions that we asked, and it took a wee bit of time for the guys to come up with answers, but basically we'll finish off one question, and the question is basically, if you could tell your younger self something, knowing what you know now, what would that be?
I think just to try and enjoy kind of playing football every day, because you kind of lose, like, for me personally, lose perspective of where you've kind of come from sometimes. You kind of get into the mindset of thinking that because of the pressures and the demands on it, 3 points on a Saturday, we need to results-based business. You kind of, that enjoyment kind of wavers like over the years. So I think it would be just to kind of enjoy every day as much as possible, because, like you say, injury, lack of performance, especially like within football, is like you never know when like crap hits the fan. And I think it would just be to kind of take each day as it is and just enjoy it for what it is.
I think I'd do the same. Lastly, just want to say, Back Onside, obviously, you know, the charity doesn't get any kind of government funding or anything like that. It's, you know, strictly a donation. So for anybody watching, you can go on and have a look at the social channels and go and see how you can help out the charity, and then how we can help, you know, the guys and the girls within the game, or just in general life.
I think I just say before, it's important to reiterate, like, the work that the charity do is for everybody. It's not just for like footballers or football clubs that we're obviously just using this as a channel to get through to kind of everyday people. Like, I know we're just all the same, but like anyone who is out there, like the charity do help everybody, not just football and football clubs. So I think that's important to just chuck back in there.
Of course. Perfect. Brilliant.
No,
thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Cheers.
I think it's helped that obviously everything was, well, that I spoke about is obviously real. So
Oh,
it's
it's
just
real life,
got,
mate.
like,
It's real life.